Greetings, family, and welcome to Motherland Media. This is Brother DJ, along with Bobbie Cheema. How you doing, Bobbie Cheema?
Doing well, brother.
Good, good. And again, greetings to the family, those of you who are listening in online, and those of you who are going to call in. This is a call that we do every Thursday night at 9 p.m., on behalf of Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative. This is our presentation, and tonight we're actually going to start our member orientation and training for those of you who will stick around for the second hour of the broadcast. So just want to put that out there early to those of you who are going to be on the call from 10 to 11. We're going to engage in member training and orientation for those of us who are members of Us Lifting Us. But I want to start off, sisters and brothers, with a series of questions for Bobbie Cheema. Bobbie Cheema is our elder advisor and founding board member of Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative, based here in Atlanta, but we're actually spread out all over the country and all over the world. But first things first, Bobbie Cheema, what has really brought us to this place as a global race family for us to really see the need to develop Us Lifting Us?
A lot of pain, for one. Obviously, our communities have been decimated from an economic and social perspective. And the Rust Belt that we talk about, I moved to Atlanta from the Midwest, and I saw personally the demise of some of those cities where we had moved from the South to go to the North and get good paying jobs, and those jobs simply left and went abroad. And now the migration pattern is us coming back to the South because, again, those cities, those economies tanked out. So a lot of unrest, a lot of tension, and all the things that happen when you are not in a position to meet the needs of the family. And, of course, crime and other aspects. But in our movement overall, it's been a fairly recent phenomenon that economics or the need for economic empowerment is kind of risen to the top. It was usually self-determination or other things that dealt with the social climate overall. But I think it's part us wanting to get off those plantations, those JOBs, and get to a safer place where we weren't, the last hired and the first fired, so to speak, off from under the thumbs of the bosses. But we find today kind of a different mantra, and it seems that we're fairly well united in our desire and our need to really be more organized and tighter as it relates to what is it going to take to, or what it will take for us to gain greater control of the economics of our communities. And that also goes to our nations as well. I mean, coming out of colonialism, there was the thought that when we had political control, we would also have economic control. And, of course, nothing could have been further from the truth. And so we're struggling globally to get a handle on the natural resources, our labor, our genius, and the business sector in those communities. And so it's not only in our communities and regions and nations, but it's global. And so it looks that, Brother DJ, we are solidly into a phase in our history where the economic bell has been toned, and if we don't answer that call adequately, we're not going to be satisfied. And I think that's only correct, because if you're in a situation where you're not able as a people to meet your fundamental needs, your human creature needs, then certainly you're in a very, very vulnerable condition. And so what ULU is, in my opinion, doing is simply answering the cries of our people for a sane, for a sober, and I use your words, for an adult approach to economic empowerment that doesn't continue to put us under the thumb of the international bankers and Wall Street and those elements internationally that are in collusion with them. So, in short, that's what I would say to that question, Brother DJ.
What type of person or people would be a part of an economic formation like this? What is the attraction, and what type of individual would join up, would sign up to be a part of a cooperative economic development process? What are we looking for?
We're looking for brothers and sisters who have been honest with themselves and have come to the conclusion that business as usual on the treadmill in this rat race that we call hyper-capitalism or predator capitalism, however you term it, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy for anybody on the planet that I know of, and certainly the situation where you know that you contribute more in terms of your labor and your time than you receive through wages, and you know also that someone else took the access, the surplus of your labor and enriched themselves and put you in a situation where you were forced to come back to work the next day just to make ends meet. So the brother or sister that we're looking for is a brother or sister that maybe have thought about a different way of organizing an economy where the capital was not king, but the other aspects of an economy were valued. The labor, the technology, the raw materials were valued on a par with capital, or maybe even superior to capital. And so throughout the world, this whole notion of an economy that was more democratic, that the workers would be more in control of the work environment, it's almost a sign of our time. And maybe not in America as much as in other countries, but it's beginning to be called for in America as well. So the brothers and sisters that we're looking for are those brothers and sisters who are ready for a new paradigm, one that would possibly, and I would say that must, put us in the driver's seat in terms of controlling the economics of our own community. I would say that the majority of black people in this country, if you ask them the question, should we control the economics of our own community, would say yes. And the question that, of course, we are answering is how. And so hopefully that begins to answer. You may want to add to that.
No, I thought that was a great answer. And that pretty much sums up, in my opinion, the type of person and individuals that we're looking for to be a part of this very progressive way of thinking. At the end of the day, that's what ULU represents in a lot of ways, a different modality in terms of how we've historically done business, but more importantly, how we have historically related to one another, in terms of meeting our individual and collective needs. So great answer. What is, I would say, what do you not necessarily feel, but what do you think is the greatest dilemma that we face as a global people that comes by us not having control of the economics of our community? What does that lead to?
Whoa, that's almost every every aspect of the life of a community is negatively impacted when you're not in control of the economy. Everything from your health to your time that you have to spend with your family, with your loved ones, the time that you have to spend with, organizations like church or like other civic organizations, psychologically and spiritually, when you know for certain that you're on this treadmill and you're not the person at the helms of the controls, and it just psychologically and spiritually is draining. And so I think we're vulnerable in so many ways when you're not in control of your food source, your everything. And what I mean by that is that I don't think anyone is in control by themselves in any situation in the world, but their group generally is. Their community generally is. And when you know that you as an individual, you as a family or clan, and your group, however you identify and whatever name you give to it, you know with certainty that another group is pulling the levers, is yanking your chain, so to speak. And so you suffer physically, you suffer emotionally, you suffer spiritually, psychologically, in every way. And so I don't think it's any one thing. It's just that a person or a group that is a social creature that lives in groups and survives in groups is the knowledge, the knowing, and the certainty that your group is subservient and at the mercy of another group is essentially, I guess, emotional hell, I would say. It's just not a good place to be. It's not a wholesome place to be. And it's fraught with all kinds of problems emotionally, and it has to affect your physiology as well. Mm-hmm. So I would say in general, almost every aspect of social life is negatively impacted when you don't control the economy.
Would you go so far as to say that by us not controlling the economics of our community, it's stifling our development as a people to really be all that we could be and should be otherwise?
Man, I think that's a biggie. We know from in terms of developmental psychology that the black child has a head start over every other child in the world. And let's imagine that that creativity and genius was allowed to continue on its path and not be blunted by these negative impacts that we just talked about. So yes, the creativity and genius in us unabated would be a beautiful thing. We could create so much more. And, of course, when we study history, or at least ancient history, we know of the creativity and genius of our people. So I would say yes to that question.
Thank you for that. And the reason I ask that is because it's important for people who are listening for the first time to really understand the magnitude not only the magnitude of the problem, but also what really reverberates throughout our communities, locally, nationally, and globally, and that our creativity in development is essentially being stifled by not being able to produce, by not even being allowed to produce when our communities are really inundated by foreigners, not only doing business in our communities, but really controlling the economics of our community. So how we relate to each other as men and women, how our family dynamics play out, a lot of these issues go right back to resources, scarce and limited resources. Yeah. And how do we go about meeting our individual and collective needs? So I just wanted to ask that question so that the audience can understand the deep ramifications that come as a result of all of these things that we're discussing, because oftentimes that's not even talked about. You know, people think that they just have the ability to go and make a living for themselves if all things are equal, so to speak. But that's a world of difference in terms of being able to actually produce a new reality based on all of the things that are important to you and your raised family.
I see. Yeah. But Brother DJ, I just want to say to our audience that each Thursday we send out an email blast to at least a couple of thousand of good email addresses, and then some of those brothers and sisters will bounce that off to others. Of course, Facebook and other ways that people know about it. So what happens on Thursdays is that brothers and sisters from around the world come to our website or call into this conference call number. And what we do is basically introduce Us Economic Development Cooperative and our 10-point appeal and plan and some of the details of that, because the question you asked a little earlier about economics in general is one of the things that Us Lifting Us is doing and other formations around the country are doing as well. We're stepping up to the plate and we're offering a prescription, an exact method for how we can gain control of the economics of our community at a level that will be a testament to our prowess, to our genius, to our determination to not be dominated by others. And so in these discussions, we definitely want to deal with the mechanics or the mechanisms that we're putting in place, but a part of it is this Thursday evening's call. And the email that we sent out, we asked brothers and sisters to first go to our website and go through our presentation, about a 14-minute presentation online. And so our hope is that some of the brothers and sisters that are calling in and some of them that are listening in over the Internet will have questions that they want us to deal with. And, of course, you every week you give that number out for people to call in if they're not already called in. And so this is an opportunity for interaction and for feedback from brothers and sisters, again, around the country, and the opportunity is there for brothers and sisters around the world.
Definitely. Definitely. And I was just trying to see whether or not we had any callers. But I go ahead and give that call-in number. It's 646-716-5682. That's 646-716-5682. And for those of you who have already called in to the switchboard, if you have a question for either myself or Bobbie Cheema, we'll ask you to push the number 1 on your phone. Push the number 1 on your phone, and it will highlight your number, and we'll see your number and open up your line for a question or a comment. We're doing this call a little bit different tonight, wherein we will not play our 15-minute audio presentation. So we'll continue with the dialogue, But at any time, if you have a question or even a comment for either myself or Bobbie Cheema, go ahead and push 1. And again, we'll see your number highlighted, and we'll open up your line for a question and or comment related to Us Lifting Us. Okay. Give us a little bit of background, Bobbie Cheema, on Us Lifting Us. When was it founded? How did it come about?
Well, in 2011, a call went out from a local nonprofit here in Atlanta, the African Community Centers for Unity and Self-Determination, for brothers and sisters who were interested in wrapping their minds around economic empowerment. And what formed was a think tank or study group. And a year after that, we were ready to form Us Lifting Us as a legal entity, and we struggled with that formation. And then finally in 2013, June of that year, we became a limited liability company. But the exercise was especially helpful because we had one of our members had traveled to Spain with a group of 10 brothers and sisters from around the country. We had the benefit of their counsel. We had engaged law firms. We had engaged accountants and any number of experts and subject matter experts. We had an opportunity to sit with and to conference with. And so, and the other thing I think was important is that ULU came into existence at a time, and is still occurring, when there is a global discussion about what comes next in terms of an economic model for the planet. And it's generally known that capitalism is problematic. It's under attack everywhere, even tonight, I guess, in New York with this debate. And so ULU came to life and is continuing to build as a result, or in part, to a global discussion on the planet. And so we came into existence from a think tank, and we exist now as a limited liability company with hundreds of members scattered throughout the U.S., Canada, the UK, Bermuda, and Haiti. But we're formatted where we can have members throughout the world. And our grand plan, what we are shooting for, is to have members into the millions. Of course, we remember the UNIA, ACL under the leadership of Marcus Garvey, and many millions of members scattered throughout the world. So we are formatted for that kind of involvement, again, globally. So hopefully that answers some of that question.
Yes, it definitely does. And you spoke of ULU in a very unique way in its relation to other cooperative formation around the world. Can you give us a little bit more in terms of what makes ULU unique, standing, and in its structure?
Well, part of what makes ULU unique, and maybe I should say the reason for us having to think of it and build it as a distinct process, is our unique position in the world as African people, especially those of us trapped in North America. And so we needed a legal structure and a management structure that was group-owned and democratic, but we also knew that whatever ideas we came up with, we were not going to be able to go to Wall Street or to the international bankers and get it funded. And so we had to answer the question of where will our funding come from, and so we had to think through a scenario where our members of our community who wanted to participate could also receive a double benefit, and that being to empower our community and for them to get a return on their investment as well. And so most of us know of consumer co-ops, and some of the biggest co-ops in the world are consumer co-ops, credit unions, food co-ops, and of course, many of us know about worker-owned cooperatives. And so ULU is a mixture of those two forms for the most part. A member-owned cooperative where we have secondary cooperatives that are worker-controlled. And so most co-ops do not have an imperative for being the leading edge or at least a part of a people's liberation struggle. And ULU has that as part of its mission. It's not enough for us to focus on a successful business here and there, but we must focus on the empowerment of our people locally and globally. And so Uplifting Us, in our opinion, is a tool of African liberation, a tool of transformation for its people. And so to answer that kind of charge or that kind of need in our people, it had to accommodate several needs or aspects for broad participation, for the aggregation and the pooling of sizable resources, but then the clarity and the specificity in terms of what those resources would be used for, and at the same time staying in the hands of the collective. So most of the co-ops that I've been around and been a part of had a very limited need. It may have related to agriculture, a food preference, but it wasn't about power. And so ULU, the charge or the responsibility that we feel is that our economics must be organized to empower a people, not just to create jobs, not just to have a successful business, but to stimulate an entire community, in fact, an entire people for empowerment and it's beyond economics. It goes into the political and cultural realms, in other words, social dynamics. And so when we examine very closely ULU, some aspects of it will look like a worker cooperative. Some aspects will look like a consumer cooperative. But it's a member cooperative with worker control of secondary cooperatives as the actual where the rubber meets the road in terms of business models. Those are worker controlled. And again, we can get I'm sure we'll have further discussions about the details of that, but it's what is generally called a hybrid. It has certain elements of different forms of a cooperative.
Okay. What is the cost associated with becoming a member of Uplifting Us? And what are the requirements for membership?
Yeah. The requirements are that a brother or sister fills out an application, whether it's online or they can print out a paper application, fill it out, and send it in, along with the membership fee. And that can be done online or it can be done offline. That membership fee is $50 per year to be an active member, and that's really the most important thing that a brother or sister can do, is become a member. I should say, to make application for member, because we normally will interview that person and approve it after we know who they are. ULU, Us Lifting Us, is reserved for members of our own community, and we don't hide that. The language is right there in our application. Is also there in our operating agreement, or what you may call our bylaws. Now, members with their membership are the controllers. They are the governors of this process, and they exercise their authority through the election of a board of directors, and that occurs once a year, and also through the ratification or approval of the governing documents. And so ULU is a managed cooperative. In other words, there's a board of directors and a staff that govern the day-to-day operations. But that's only after the members put those persons in place. Now, members also, and not the public, have an opportunity to become stakeholders by owning co-op units. And owners of co-op units, in addition to knowing that they are empowering the process through their capital contributions, are in a position to receive a dividend or return on their investment. And the capital units are priced in denominations of $1,000. So one unit is $1,000, and most members have the objective of acquiring at least one unit, even though it's not required. But we know the attitude and the culture is there so that most members will want to get a unit as soon as they're able to. And some members just incrementally do that. Some come in with 1,000 or more, but there's no prescribed time. So what we do then with those aggregated those aggregated thousands of dollars, or the amount that's being accumulated in people's capital account to reach 1,000 later on, what we do is point those towards the opening and the running of co-op businesses in our communities that meet a need in terms of product, good, or service that the people in that community need and want, creating jobs, stimulating the local economy, and committing to charity and endowment, and ultimately a return back to those members, and some portion of it going back into the larger pool and just opening businesses, running them well in a environment that is member-run, worker-owned and controlled. And so membership is first. A brother or sister, when they look at all that ULU has to offer and makes a decision to join with us, they make an application for membership, pay the $50, and when we interview them and they're approved, then they become full members and full partners in a limited liability company whose purpose is to gain control of the economics of our community.
Okay. And so the $1,000 cooperative unit is not necessarily a requirement at this time for membership. It's only the $50 a year?
That's correct. Really, the $50 is in a way more important than the $1,000. And the reason I say that is that $50 in that application for membership says that this person has bought into the concept that psychologically and spiritually and intellectually they've bought into this master plan. And so if person doesn't buy in there, we really don't even want their money. I mean, the money is secondary. If thousands, hundreds of thousands, eventually millions of us become members, then really the money follows the intent. If we don't have the intent to control the economics of our community, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe y'all want me to go out here and rob a bank. I'm just kidding, of course. And so let's say we come into hundreds of millions of dollars, but we have no one who's bought into this concept. Then the whole question of empowerment is not real. And so, yes, so a person is not required to acquire a unit at any time. But again, most ULU members expect that they will in time. Just to give you a sense of scale, for every 1,000 ULU members who acquire at least one unit, that's $1 million. And let's say that we had 1 million members, like we had 1 million brothers at the Million Man's March and more at the Million Man's March in 95. 1 million of us acquiring at least one unit, the minimum, that's $1 billion. So those numbers and that scale speaks to the fact that we have the money. Then what ULU does, I think, better than any formation that I'm aware of around the country or in the African world, speaks to then what do you do with the money. And then we build businesses that we own collectively. And when those businesses become successful, profitable, they contribute back to the individuals and the group to continue that process of continuing to build businesses. So, yeah, I would think that most members, if they're able, they will acquire a unit. As a matter of fact, we have a plan that actually makes it attractive for brothers and sisters to acquire a unit early in our development. We have the opportunity for any units that you have acquired before a target event to actually double. So if you've acquired one unit, there's an opportunity for that to turn into 2. If you've acquired 10, it's an opportunity for it to turn into 20. So when you go through the ULU presentation, you'll see how that occurs. But also there is, and I think it's a more attractive benefit, there's an opportunity for brothers and sisters who secure their units early in the stages of development that we lay out to also be recognized and memorialized as founders. And what that will mean is a grand celebration, but we also will produce a plaque and have it prominently displayed on the buildings. And one of our models is the ULU Market and Exchange, a large-scale enterprise on the size of 125 to 175,000 square feet, and we want to have a plaque done with the names of all the persons and institutions that were involved in the successful launch of that business model, and then we want to have that plaque duplicated every time we duplicate the model, wherever it is around the country and around the world. So there are built-in incentives for people to look at acquiring units earlier than later. And as the numbers build, the tension will also build because our brothers and sisters won't want to miss that opportunity. But let's face it, some of us are not in a position to acquire a unit even when we want to. Sometimes life gets in the way, and we do not want to stifle genius and creativity and the enthusiasm that a member has just because they're not in a position to acquire an investment unit at any particular time. And it's important to say that member control is exercised based on membership, not how much money anyone puts into the process. So a person who has only contributed $50, their yearly membership fee, and a person who is done their membership fee, but let's say they've acquired 10 units or $10,000, they're on an equal footing when it comes to power and authority in the process. The only difference is that the person who has units have the ability to receive a dividend or a return, but they're equal in terms of voting strength.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and I'll put another call out for anyone who called in. If you have a question for Bobbie Cheema, go ahead and press 1 on your phone. Those of you who are already called into the switchboard, if you have a question for Bobbie Cheema or myself, go ahead and push the number 1 on your phone, and we'll see your number highlighted, and we'll open up your line for a question or a comment. Very good discussion so far. And for those of you who are listening in on the call-in side, the call-in number is 646-716-5682. That's 646-716-5682. And again, for those of you who have called into the switchboard, if you have a question, go ahead and press the number 1 on your phone. Me, actually,
Okay.
the question was in regards to ULU in its relation to capitalism and a parallel economy. Where does that, or how does that come into play? Understanding that a good number of our members considers ULU the most progressive and forward-thinking economic formation for our people to really have ever come about. So how does ULU fit, or really doesn't fit, into the global system of capitalism, and what is it poised to do in terms of really harnessing that $1.3 trillion that we spend in this country?
Well, it's an alternative. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of organizing, and it's a different way of us doing business with each other. Some aspects, of course, in terms of trade, barter, or generic. But what we have done with our model, we've taken the 1%, so to speak, that's at the top of the pyramid and gets most of the goodies out of every transaction. That element has been taken away. We also take away the boss. And so what we have created is an alternative economic system or model that is group-owned, group-controlled, and as it matures and creates a yield or an excess benefit, that's divided among the units or the shares that members would have. And so we can, with our model, compete in the global economy and can compete as vigorously as any other model, except that, again, we do away with certain elements. For instance, just as a personal example, I've worked in a small business where less than 10 people on the staff, all pretty much earning minimum wage or a little bit above there, where the owner would pocket anywhere from $15,000 to $200,000 per month. Again, a small business. And because of the way businesses in the capitalist structure are formatted or structured, essentially the workers rarely, and probably never, get the benefit of their production. And so in ULU, the workers, in addition to earning a decent salary, when the businesses are into profit, will also get additional bonus based on their performance. And so I guess overall I would say that around the country and around the world, responsible citizens of the earth are involved in engineering new systems, new paradigms. In general, it's called the new economy. It's called economic democracy. There are any number of names that it falls under. But the planet is ripe with activity seeking to determine what, again, system comes next. And so for the black community, and it's going to take us a while because we're used to a certain model, but ULU works well with our brothers and sisters who are in business. As a matter of fact, the success of ULU will create a better environment for our brothers and sisters who have individual businesses or of whatever size, because we're cultivating the appetite, the culture of doing business with ourselves first, and there will be opportunities for us to partner in some very real ways with already existing businesses and new businesses. But Claude Anderson talks about group economics. ULU goes further and say group-owned economics. So as you very often talk about, Brother DJ, when you talk about the three-legged stool, we know that we have to be better stewards with the finances that we manage at the family level or in our businesses. So that's a lane that we respect. Entrepreneurship and black business ownership, that has to be strengthened. We have to support more vigorously the businesses in our community. But ULU is bringing something totally different to the table that will make the other two more viable and strengthen them. And what we bring to the table is cooperative economics that are structured to empower a people. So we call it Black Power Cooperative Economics. And it's simply the pooling of resources, the proliferation of businesses that are all on the same string. In other words, they're connected. And so because they are connected and they function together, we're better able to coordinate the activities of those businesses. What I mean by that, where you buy together, you do things together, maybe it's not buy, but other things together. You look at the analytics so that you determine that there is room for a new business that would serve the existing businesses. But more than anything else, you are able, or we are able to develop patterns of behavior in our community and in our people that we think of fondly when we think about the Black Wall Streets and the other institutions where the dollar circulated many, many more times. And so we're able to reinforce those habit patterns through a reward system, and negatively and positively rewards, and to hone that to a science so that we become engineers of building and sustaining a new economy that has global ramifications. And so, yeah, it's different, and we don't have to put down capitalism and all that, the weaknesses of that system and the harm that it's done to the planet. We just focus on building a better mousetrap, a better way of approaching our needs.
Okay. Well, definitely appreciate that. We do have a caller on the line, caller 7124. 7124. Please state your name and where you're calling from. Your line is open.
Hi, this is Juanisha. I'm calling from Macon, Georgia.
Greetings.
And my question is, I know that one of the goals is to open up a market exchange Ulumart. What will be first, investing in small businesses or going for the market exchange first? How would that process work? If you understand what I mean.
Yes, I do understand, and thank you for the question. Bobbie Cheema, you want to take that in terms of what came out of our annual members meeting this past March and what we're poised to do?
Yeah, why don't you take that one, Brother DJ?
Okay, all right. Well, coming out of our annual members meeting this year, there was a resolution passed that will allow the board of directors to be able to entertain smaller projects, and what we mean by smaller projects are projects that are $100,000 or less. Prior to that, our focus was the building of our market and exchange, the big box facility on the size of 175,000 square feet. That would take approximately $5 million for us to pull off, and which would also mean that we would have to build the membership numbers considerably in order to do that. But a lot of our members, along with members of the board, felt that it was necessary for us as an organization to begin the process of putting smaller projects in the hopper, so to speak, to not only generate revenue, but to also give us an opportunity to work our cooperative relationships with each other in business. And so, fortunately, that resolution was passed about a month ago, and so we're now in a position to be able to look at smaller projects as a stepping stone to help us build towards that grand vision of the market and exchange. So your question is timely, and we definitely thank you for it.
Okay, thank you for answering.
Bobbie Cheema, did you have a follow-up to that? Anything you
No,
want to add?
I just thank her for the question, and I think when brothers and sisters understand that, for instance, in a community like Macon, which is a unique opportunity for us, we can have a grand impact on a community with several businesses. So I appreciate the question, and so the probability and the likelihood is well, I shouldn't say for sure, but the likelihood is that we will start the smaller projects much earlier than the bigger one, and I'm hopeful that we will start those projects, in the coming months, in the coming short months. And so again, thank you for the question. And now, sis, were you at our members meeting in March from Macon?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I thought that was you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I have another question too. Is it okay if I answer? I don't know if you have other people online.
You're good.
Another question. As far as choosing, like for instance, business to invest in, how will members be kept up to date, as far as projects that are being looked at? Will there be maybe if there's a choice of 3 different projects that look, promising, will they be presented to the members, or will it be kept, within the board to kind of, decipher if it's a good project to go with, and then it's presented to the members and we decide to go forward or not? How would that process work?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we always encourage our members to do is to get involved with the various committees that we've set up. And so the primary committee for that particular field of endeavor would be the Business Development Committee. And that's really the most effective way to really stay informed and stay in the loop, so to speak,
as to what is being considered, what's being proposed from our various members, and actually what the board is really paying attention to organizationally. But of course, in the keeping with our operating agreement, we will send out email blasts instructing and informing our membership of what is being considered, and ultimately what we will decide as a board that is within the best, that we feel is in the best interest of the cooperative, looking at all of the different, variables, so to speak. Does it create jobs? Is it in keeping with our cooperative culture? Because there's certain types of businesses that ULU will not be involved in, or, whether it's a franchise or takeover or investment kind of situation. It's just some things that we won't be involved in. But also, does it position us to be able to leave a tangible mark financially on future generations? So those considerations, along with many others, does it fit into our budgetary constraints, and all of those things will be considered. Can it be duplicated? How easy? The existing management team, all of those things would have to be considered before we make a decision. But I would say, again, one of the most effective ways to kind of stay in the loop is to be a part of that business development committee.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And if you have any other questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them or give it our best shot. Bobbie Cheema is our resident expert, so if I can't answer it, I definitely defer to him.
No, it's very much a collective, and you there in Macon, I would encourage, I'm not sure, I'm not sure how many members we have in Macon, but we have a few members in Macon, and we just want to build a base there in Macon, and the best persons to determine the types of business that would be best for Macon are you, those who live there. And you know the lay of the land better than anyone. So brothers and sisters in local communities, we want them active, looking for business opportunities for the collective.
Definitely. Well, sis, thank you. Definitely thank you for your question. And if that's it, Bobbie Cheema, we're going to go ahead and we're right at the 10 o'clock, beginning of the 10 o'clock hour. And so what we scheduled to do is to take a short break before we start our member orientation and training. So for those of you who are prospective members, hopefully you have heard enough from our dialogue to go ahead and make an informed decision about Us Lifting Us. But again, before we go into the second phase of our call, let the people know where they can find additional information about ULU and how they can get involved.
Yes, thank you, brother. Our website is Control Central, usliftingus.com, usliftingus.com. And when you get there, the first thing you'll see is our 10-point appeal and plan. We want to encourage everyone, member, prospective member, to print that 10-point appeal and plan out. And if you have paper and ink, and if you can afford it, print out several copies and begin to share them with people in your community and in your travels. And then when you go to our homepage, we want to encourage you to view the top video. In the middle of the page, there are 3 videos. The top video says, "At Last, a Winning Plan." And we want you to review that 14-minute presentation and take advantage of clicking to fill out a form for additional information. When you fill out that form for additional information, we will instantly send you our 22-page operating agreement, our 4-page values and ethics document, and send you other information that will put in your hand all, hopefully, that you would need to make an informed decision about ULU membership. And, of course, we're here every Thursday And I would encourage you to bring people, three-way people, onto the call or invite them to listen on the website. And so our phone number, if you want to reach out to us and engage us by phone, is 404-592-2780. Again, 404-592-2780.
All right. Well, that about does it for our first hour.